Okay, well, good morning, 8th and ninth graders. I hope you all are doing well. We're going to do a new lesson today. This is 12.7, so we're skipping ahead a little bit. And this is quadratic functions, okay? In this video here, we're going to be talking about graphing, so you definitely will want to look along in your book. This is page 511, okay? You'll definitely want to be there with me. So when we have a quadratic function, okay, this is going to be graphing it. So this is when we have f of x, okay, back to that. And then we have ax squared plus c. Okay, so we have no b term, but this is, we're going to learn to graph this. Okay, now one of the most important things to look at here is to just follow the simple instructions. So turn with me, look at example 1. Okay, I'm going to start it over so I got a full screen here. And I'm going to give you a graph. Let's see if I can insert this. Let's see if this is possible. Here we go. So here's a graph, right? And they want us to graph an equation. Okay, and the equation they want us to graph is simply this. F of x equals x squared. Now remember, the way we find this is whatever we put in for x here, we put in for x here. So let me try f of 0. Okay, what is f of 0? What's 0 squared? Well, that's 0. So my first point then is 0, 0, and I just make a mark there. Then let's try f of 1. What is 1 squared? Well, that's 1, so 1, 1. So I go up here to 1, 1. That's easy. Then let's do f of negative 1. Now, what's negative 1 squared? That again is 1, and so we got 1. And so I'm negative 1, 1. Right? You see we're doing this thing. We did this before, right? If I do f of 2, then I get 2 squared, which is 4. So 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I do negative 2, 4. And then I got 3. 3 squared is up here at 9. And then at negative 9, right? You remember this from in class, right? So that's f of x. That's this one right here, graphed, okay? Now I'm going to erase this because that's all review. Now, let's say that we change it a little bit, and this time what they do is they do g of x equals 3x squared. So now we're going to put something in front of the x squared. So now, when I plug something in, right, I'm going to do this in red. So I have g of 0. Well, 0 squared times 3 is still 0. So same starting point, 0. But now if I do 1, look at this, 3 times 1 squared. 1 squared is 1 times 3 is 3. So now I'm at 1, and I'm already up here at 3. And that means that when I do g of negative 1, I'm also going to get negative 1 squared. I'm going to be at 3 again. Okay, and then if I do 2, I'm going to have 2 squared, which is 4, which is 12. So at 2, I'm all the way up here. And negative 2, I'm all the way up here. So this red line here, woo, that actually went through that dot, is going to represent that right there. So let me see if I can erase that a little bit. There we go. So you can see there the red line is different. Why is the red line different? Well, it's different because it had a 3 in front of the x squared, and that made it way steeper. Okay, so all I do to solve these is to just plug in the equation, right? Plug it in, g of 0, put it in for, then I do g of 0 equals 3 times 0 squared, right? It's just the same thing as how I would solve a normal problem. Okay, now flip over to the next page here. This is example 2, so you're going to want to follow along. This is example 2. Okay, so I'm going to insert my graph here. So make it big again. So this is example 2. Okay, so over here I have negative x. So I'm going to do f of x equals negative x squared. Now notice that the parentheses are not around the x, the negative x, they're only around the x. So when I do f of 0, I get 0 squared, which is 0. So again, my starting point is 0, 0. That's not very hard. Then when I do 1, though, look what happens. I get 1 squared, but then I have a negative out here. So 1 squared is 1, but then it's negative 1. So I go 1, negative 1. Then I do f of negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1, but then I have a negative from this negative. So I'm back to negative 1, and guess what it's going to be? The exact inverse of our other one, right? We get an f of 2, we're going to get 4, but then it's going to be negative 4. F of negative 2 is also going to be negative 4, right? It's a pattern. So I come down here, boom, boom, and then I come down here to negative 9, and negative 9, and there is my arc, okay? So that's for f of x equals negative x squared. Now, I'm going to erase this. If you needed that, go back and pause the video. Now, let's graph the other one that they put on there, which is f of x equals 1/2. f of x equals 1/2 x squared. Okay? So now I put in, let's put in 0. Well, 0 always gives me 0, right? 0 times anything is 0. Now let's put in 1. What is 1 squared? 1 squared equals 1, but then times 1/2 equals 0.5. So at 1, I've only gone up a half, which is really hard to mark. Equals 1/2. And at negative 1, I've also only gone up 1/2, right? Remember, it matches. Then at 2, 2 squared is 4. Okay, so 2 squared equals 4. But then I have to do that times 1/2 equals 2. So I'm only at 2. So it's 2, 2, and negative 2, 2. Do you see how much broader of a range that is? Okay, so at 2, I'm sorry, I only put this at 1. I don't know why. I messed up on the drawing there. Sorry, don't put the dot there. It's at 2, 2, which I said but did not draw. 2, 2, and 2, 2. And then when I put in f of 3, right, 3 squared is 9, and half is going to be 4.5. So at 3, I'm up here at 4.5 and negative 4.5. Okay, now you see that one's much more droopy. It's right, it's wider because it had this half. So that's this one there on the top part. And then this green one here is showing you that that's the negative x squared. Okay, the only other one that we do here, you can look at that chart if you want. They're called the effect of A on a graph, but you don't have to know that for this lesson or for the rest of the year, so that's fun. Final one that we're going to do here together is when we have a C, or something what we call a C added on. So this is example 3. Okay, so this is example 3 on the next page if you want to follow along. Example 3, yeah, you don't have to worry about that. So here we go. We have f of x, I don't know why I have r of x, but they do, equals x squared plus 2. Okay, so now all we have to do is plug in numbers, right? Let's do f of 0. What's 0 plus 2 equals 2. So at 0, I'm up here. Now this should look familiar because we did stuff like this, right? What's 1 squared plus 2? Well, that's 3, right? 1 squared is 1, plus 2 is 3. So at 1, we're at 3. And then I do negative 1, and we get the same thing, right? Negative 1 squared, which is 1 plus 2 equals 3. So I'm back up here. Negative 1 at 3. Now I try f of 2, and I'm going to get 2 squared, which is 4, plus 3, or sorry, plus 2. 4 plus 2 is 6. So I'm at 2, comma 6, negative 2, negative 2, comma 6, right? They match. And then I do f of negative 2, which I already did, which is 6. And then f of negative, or positive 3, negative 3, is 9 plus 2, right? 3 squared plus is 11, right? So at 3, I'm all the way here and here. So all that did was change where I started, right? This plus 2 went from here, where it normally would start, up 2. Right, that was the only difference. So we have done this before. So here's the key. All you have to do when solving this is make a chart right here. What I'm highlighting in green, you can just write out. Okay, and the book shows you how you can write that out. You literally just plug in the numbers. If you put f of 0, then you put it in for x, and then you solve the equation. Okay, so pretty straightforward. I'm not going to labor the point. It's not very hard, and then you graph it. Now, some of these you don't have to graph. So follow along with me. This is page 513. And this is 12.7. We are going to do 1 through 8 all. Okay, here's the key part. You don't graph. Don't graph these. All you do is plug in the function. They say f of 0, f of 2, f of negative 1, and f of 4. That's all you do. Then, the only rest of the homework here is at 13 through 18 all. And all these are the graphing. Okay, so graph. Okay, so these equal graph. those equal don't graph. So blue, you don't graph. Red, you do graph. Okay, so there is the homework for today, and we're almost done, guys. We only have two more lessons after this, and you guys will be done with Algebra 1. So hang in there. Mr. H, it's over and out.